On my 27th birthday, the room smelled like wealth. Crystal clinked softly, perfume wrapped the air, and laughter floated around me, though none of it felt like it belonged to me. My grandfather lifted his champagne, eyes steady. "How have you been using your $3.4 million trust fund, Evelyn?" The world tilted under me. I blinked once, twice, trying to make sense of the words. What trust fund? Every fork paused mid-air. My mother's hand froze halfway through some story. My father swallowed hard like something sharp had caught in his throat. Grandpa's face stayed calm, almost too calm. Where did the money go? His voice cut the room in half. Under the chandeliers and stiff smiles, I finally understood this wasn't a birthday dinner. It was a reckoning. My name is Evelyn Hart, and until that moment, I thought I knew my family. I grew up believing success meant silence. Don't ask questions, smile at gatherings, never mention money. I lived in San Francisco now, far from their polished floors and their curated lives, working as a freelance designer in a tiny Mission District apartment where the paint peeled and the pipes muttered at night. But it was my space. I'd sketch logos at my wobbly kitchen table while the city buzzed outside, coffee going cold beside overdue bills. My parents, James and Victoria, lived a short drive away in Marin. 4 bedrooms, a pool, a pair of Teslas, and an endless list of remodels to maintain the illusion of perfection. We spoke often, but never about anything real. Conversations began with, "How was work?" and ended before they had to listen to the answer. The last time they'd surprised me was years ago, at my graduation. I crossed the stage carrying $70,000 in student debt and a degree I earned without their help. They hugged me, handed me a nicely wrapped box, and told me they were proud. Inside was a book titled Financial Literacy for Young Adults. I smiled for the camera. Later that night, I cried over the sink, realizing that was the only help they planned to give. Still, I kept pushing, paid rent, skipped dinners, took whatever freelance job came my way, watched friends travel while I budgeted groceries. One day, I'd tell myself, one day I'll breathe. A week before my birthday, my boss called me into his glass office. His expression told me everything. "Evelyn, I'm sorry, we're cutting back." I boxed my things, rode the bus home, and sat on the couch with my roommate Madison, the one stable thing in my life for the past 2 years. "Your parents will help, right?" she asked. I laughed, empty and tired. They'll probably send me a podcast recommendation. But that night, I called anyway. "Mom, I lost my job." "Oh, that's unfortunate," she said, typing loudly in the background. "But you'll figure it out. You always do." "I'm behind on rent, Mom. Well, maybe this will teach you to save better." Then, as if we were discussing brunch, she said, "We're booking your birthday dinner. Atelier Cren, 7:30. Don't be late." "Mom, that place is $300 a plate." She laughed sharply. "Don't be cheap, Evelyn. It's your birthday. Dress nicely." The call ended before I could breathe. I stared at my reflection in the dead TV screen. Tired eyes, split ends, lipstick barely there. $300 a plate. That was half a month of groceries. Madison looked up from the couch. "You don't have to go." "Yeah, I do. In my family, skipping dinner is a sin." So I marked the date like someone circling the day of their own trial. The week crawled. I kept applying, kept refreshing my inbox, only to collect rejections. My savings slipped under 4 figures. Every sound in the hallway made me jump, waiting for the landlord's knock. By Friday night, I hadn't slept in days. Madison found me hunched over my laptop at 2 a.m. "Eve, go to bed." "I can't. If I stop, I'll think." "Think about what?" she whispered. "About showing up to that dinner pretending everything's fine while I'm sinking." She squeezed my shoulder. "Then make it the last time they get to do that to you." I didn't understand her then, but her words stayed with me. Saturday arrived with sharp sunlight. I stood in front of my closet, staring at the same 3 tired options: faded jeans, a blazer missing a button, and a black dress from an old job interview. I chose the dress. It still fit, mostly. On the bus, I watched the city through streaked windows. Tourists laughing, couples walking hand in hand, a kid dropping ice cream down his arm. I envied how uncomplicated their moments were. Atelier Cren gleamed like a jewel box. When I walked in, my parents were already seated. My mother in a red silk dress, my father polished and proper. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Mom said, brushing her cheek against mine, her perfume stinging my eyes. My father examined me. "You look tired. Rough week?" "Lost my job," I murmured. He nodded, like I'd mentioned a change in the weather. Well, these things happen. They drifted into stories about Europe, their Tesla's autopilot, the latest renovation at home. I kept counting minutes, waiting for the night to end. I didn't feel celebrated. I felt displayed. Then the door opened. A hush spread through the room when my grandfather walked in, Robert Hart. Silver-haired, tall, moving with quiet command. The maitre d' practically tripped in his rush to assist him. My mother's smile faltered. "Dad, what are you doing here?" He answered easily. "Celebrating my granddaughter." He hugged me, warm and real, and I felt my shoulders drop for the first time that night. "I didn't know you were coming." "Wouldn't miss it," he replied. He sat beside me, ordered whiskey, made polite conversation, but there was a sharpened edge beneath every word, like he already knew the script. Then he lifted his glass, the whiskey catching the gold light, and said the sentence that rewrote my entire life. "So, Evelyn, how do you spend your $3.4 million trust fund?" The words shattered the room. My pulse roared in my ears. What trust fund? Utensils froze. My mother's expression cracked. My father went pale. My grandfather didn't flinch. "The trust I set aside when you were born. Your parents were meant to transfer it when you turned 25. Mom laughed too quickly. "Dad, you must be misremembering." "Victoria," he said softly, "don't." He asked for a private room. Within minutes we were moved away, plates abandoned. The door shut with a quiet thud that felt like a verdict. Grandpa's assistant Michelle stood waiting with a tablet. Beside her was a man in a crisp suit, Michael Anderson, Grandpa's attorney. "This won't take long," Grandpa said. "I need clarity." Michael opened a folder and slid papers toward me. "Miss Hart, this is the trust created at your birth. Initial deposit, $1 million, current projected value approximately $3.4 million. My fingers hovered over the documents. "Should be?" "Yes. As of today, the account holds $200,000. The number hit like a punch. 200,000? 25 years of growth and savings? Gone. Grandpa's gaze pinned my parents. "Explain." Dad wiped his forehead. We used some, just to manage the mortgage when the market dipped. Some 3 million, James? Mom clutched her purse like a lifeline. We were handling it for her future. We didn't want her wasting it. I laughed, bitter and cracked. "You mean like wasting it on rent, or food, or trying to survive?" Mom's voice broke. "Sweetheart, we only wanted what's best. You gave me a book on budgeting at graduation while draining my account." Grandpa raised a hand. Silence swallowed the room. "Michelle, list the withdrawals." She began reading, her tone flat. "Mortgage payoff, $450,000. Vehicle purchases, 2 Tesla Model S, $280,000. Home renovation, $320,000. Investment in Victoria Hart Real Estate, $500,000. Marked total loss." Each line felt like a hit to the chest. Then she hesitated. "Purchase of property in Malibu, $1.8 million, registered under James and Victoria Hart. A Malibu beach house? Bought with my money?" My father deflated. It was an investment. It was theft, Grandpa said quietly, from your own daughter. The room fell still. No one breathed. Finally, Grandpa stood. Give me the keys. My mother froze, then reached into her bag. She pulled out 2 keys and a fob, setting them on the table with trembling fingers. Grandpa slid them toward me. These belong to you. 2 years overdue. I picked them up. They were still warm from her hand. My keys, my property, my life they had kept hidden from me. Mom started to cry, soft sobs. Please, Dad, don't do this. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, he said. You'll hear from my lawyers tomorrow. They left the room slowly, as if gravity had doubled. The door closed and the air felt lighter, but emptier. Grandpa turned to me. Evelyn, I'll have a full audit done. They'll face legal consequences. But the decision to press charges, it's yours. I looked down at the keys, metal cold against my skin. For years, I'd begged for scraps of approval. Now I held proof that their love had a price tag. I need time, I whispered. Take it, he said. But know this, they were planning to run. Michelle found tickets to Costa Rica bought 3 days ago. My chest tightened. They came to dinner knowing this was goodbye? He nodded, and they smiled while doing it. That night, I left the restaurant with the keys in my pocket and a storm in my chest. Outside, the city lights blurred through the fog. Madison was waiting up when I got home. When I told her everything, she stared at me like I just recited a crime scene report. They stole from you. Your own parents? Not just money, I said. Years. I looked out the window at the sleeping city and felt something break and something else begin. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to take everything back quietly. 3 days after that dinner, I was summoned to my grandfather's office, a glass tower downtown that looked like it could slice the sky. I barely slept since the night of the reveal. The words, "they were planning to run," played on loop in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's trembling hand dropping the keys, my father's silence that felt like confession. When I arrived, Michelle was already waiting in the lobby, immaculate as always, tablet in hand. They're here, she said quietly. Robert wanted you present. My stomach tightened. Both of them? She nodded. They came to negotiate. Negotiate? That word tasted wrong. The elevator opened to the top floor, glass walls, leather chairs, the faint scent of cedar and old money. Grandpa sat behind his desk, posture straight, hands clasped. Across from him sat my parents. Dad looked 10 years older. Mom was trying to smile, but the gloss on her lips cracked at the corners. Evelyn, Grandpa said, voice steady, sit. I sat opposite them. No one spoke for a moment. The only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were just desperate. Grandpa's voice was cold. Trying to stay afloat, Dad said. You wouldn't understand. I understand greed, Grandpa interrupted. I built an empire on recognizing it. Mom reached forward, tears already in her eyes. We love her, Dad. We were going to tell her eventually. When, after you finished selling the Malibu house. Silence. Michael Anderson, the attorney, stepped forward, setting a stack of printed bank statements on the desk. The forensic audit is complete, he said. Every transaction traced, every property connected. We recovered approximately $2 million through asset seizures and forced sales. My father rubbed his temples. $2 million? You didn't recover it, Michael said sharply. We did, through the law. I watched the scene from what felt like outside my own body. Every lie peeled away, every secret dragged into the light. Michelle handed me a folder. Inside were photos of my parents' purchases. The Malibu property, luxury cars, jewelry receipts, cruise bookings, all funded by my trust. You should know what they valued more than you, she said, softly. I swallowed hard. This is enough to press criminal charges, isn't it? Yes, Michael replied. Felony financial fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Up to 10 years. Mom gasped. Evelyn, you wouldn't. Please. Her voice broke like a child's, but I didn't flinch. I didn't do this, I said. You did. My father leaned forward, desperation bleeding through the calm facade. We made mistakes, but prison? We're your parents. Parents protect, I said quietly. They don't pillage. Grandpa turned to me. It's your choice, sweetheart. The room blurred around me, the skyline behind glass, the papers, the trembling hands across the desk. I thought of 27 years of dinners where I smiled through silence, of student loans I'd paid with ramen and overtime, of birthdays where they sent flowers but not love. I met my mother's eyes. You left me with nothing. Now you have exactly that. The words landed like thunder. Mom's shoulders collapsed. Dad looked away, jaw clenched. Grandpa nodded once to Michael, file the necessary motions. Mom reached across the table, voice shaking. Dad, please. You are my daughter, he said, but there's a difference between blood and character. She began to sob, real this time. It wasn't for me, it was for everything they were losing. As the lawyers finalized the papers, I stood and walked to the window. The city stretched below, cranes, cars, the slow pulse of people living their lives. I pressed my hand to the glass, the cold grounding me. For the first time in years, I wasn't small. Behind me, I heard Grandpa say, keys, deeds, accounts, all transferred back to Evelyn, effective immediately. When I turned, Michelle handed me a slim envelope. These are your property documents, Pacific Heights fully under your name now. I nodded, thank you. Mom whispered something, her voice barely audible. You'll regret this. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who taught me to keep my voice soft, my needs smaller, my worth tied to approval. No, I said. For once, I won't. They left soon after, escorted out by security. The door closed. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. Grandpa stood slowly, walking over to me. You did the right thing. I don't feel good, I admitted. Justice rarely feels good, he said, but it's necessary. He put a hand on my shoulder, firm and steady. You're not alone anymore, Evelyn. You never were. That night, I went to see the apartment, the one I'd never been allowed to step inside. Pacific Heights was quiet, all glass and steel and bay views. The doorman recognized my name immediately. Mr. Hart said you'd be coming. When I unlocked the door, the smell of expensive candles hit me first. Everything was staged. Neutral tones, marble counters, a coffee table book about modern design, a stranger's life furnished with my money. I wandered through the rooms, fingertips brushing the walls, the furniture, the evidence. On the counter, a lease folder. Tenants' names, rent deposits. My parents had been collecting money for years. I sank onto the couch and laughed, the sound raw. Then the laughter broke into tears. Not grief anymore, but release. Madison arrived 20 minutes later, holding takeout. You're really here, she whispered, eyes wide. I'm home, I said. She looked around, smiled. So, how does justice feel? Quiet, I said, and heavier than I thought. We ate, sitting on the floor, curtains spread out like old times. Through the windows, the bay shimmered with city lights. Somewhere behind me, the keys gleamed on the counter, a reminder of everything that had been stolen and everything I'd taken back. Before bed, I texted, Grandpa moved in. Thank you for fighting when I couldn't. His reply came a minute later. You always could, Evelyn. You just needed proof. I stared at that message until the screen dimmed, proof of what they'd done and who I'd become. A month passed before I could sleep without waking in the middle of the night, expecting another secret to surface. But the investigation moved quickly. My parents' assets, both Teslas, the Malibu house, even the country club membership, were liquidated. The proceeds poured back into my account, under my name, where they should have always been. They moved into a roadside motel in Oakland, Grandpa told me. In a quiet voice, they're paying restitution, $500 a month, court-ordered. I didn't feel joy when he said it, just balance. I settled into the apartment in Pacific Heights. Each morning, the fog rolled over the bay like breath. I'd sit on the balcony with coffee, laptop open, freelancing again. Clients came fast, referrals from Grandpa's network, startups that needed branding. For once, I wasn't scrambling. I was building. Madison came over every weekend. We hung art, unpacked boxes, made the place ours. "You realize," she said once, laughing, "you could buy this whole building now." "I don't want to own more things," I said. "Just more peace." Weeks turned into months. My name was on everything now. Bank accounts, titles, deeds. But it wasn't the money that settled me. It was the ownership of my life. One evening, Grandpa invited me for dinner. He looked frailer but lighter, as if some weight had lifted. "You did what I couldn't," he told me. "You drew a line." I smiled. "You taught me how." That night, driving home through the city, I passed the restaurant where it all began. Through the glass, people were laughing, toasting, unaware of how fast a family can fracture over greed. I didn't stop. Some chapters deserve to stay closed. Finally, I learned that blood doesn't always mean loyalty. My parents stole my future and called it love, but I took it back, piece by piece, quietly, legally, completely. Now when I look out over the bay, I don't see what I lost. I see what I rebuilt. If you've ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most, remember this: you can still start over stronger than before. And if stories like mine hit close to home, stay with me. The next one might sound uncomfortably familiar. Hit subscribe and don't look back.